Hey, how's it going, you guys? It's Murray here. Well, it's only a few weeks left now until Easter. And let me ask you something. Are you and your family planning on doing anything different for Easter this year? Last year, it felt like we kind of missed it because the pandemic was just starting and people thought it would end a lot sooner than it did. So we kind of just brushed over Easter and hoped for the best. Well, this year, we have a lot to make up for. I'm planning on visiting my parents this year for Easter, since I didn't get to see them last year. Frankly, I'm not a person who decorates at Easter. It's never been my thing. But this year, I feel like we've gone through such a tough winter that we need more decoration and festivity. I guess it's just one of the ways that the pandemic has kind of changed me a bit. Have you felt changed by the pandemic at all? Everybody has found their own way of adapting to these difficult times. That's not a bad thing, though. People change and evolve over time. The personality you had a few years ago is probably different from the personality you have now. And 10 years from now, you'll probably be a totally different person. People's identities, or how they describe themselves, how they feel about themselves, changes all the time. Sometimes people we know change for no reason at all, or not one that we can understand. And sometimes we find it difficult to understand other people or even ourselves because we change so much. It can sometimes be frustrating when you struggle to understand other people or to express yourself to them, and Jesus felt that exact frustration. During his ministry, Jesus became incredibly famous in Israel. He was known as a preacher and a healer and a miracle worker, but the problem was people didn't really know Jesus the person. There were all sorts of wild theories and rumors that were going around about who Jesus was and where he came from. Jesus often got frustrated by that. He didn't want people to think the wrong things about him and get confused. And when Jesus got really concerned about what people thought about him, he asked his friends for advice.
Say, guys, I have a question for you.
Sure, Jesus. Of course.
Ask us anything.
You've heard how people talk about me when I'm not around. Who do they say I am?
Well, I've heard some people say you're John the Baptist.
What, my cousin? But he isn't around anymore. John died in prison.
Well, Jesus, maybe people just want to think that John is still alive.
Or maybe they're confused on account of the whole, cousin thing.
Well, I guess that's not the worst thing people can think, right?
I mean, uh-huh.
What?
Well, some people have also said that you're the reincarnation of Elijah.
What?
I heard it was Jeremiah.
Point is, they think you might be one of the ancient prophets.
Oh, what a mess. Those people have got it all wrong. I'm not John or the reincarnation of a dead prophet. These rumors are just going to confuse people and send them in the wrong direction. Hey, guys, who do you think that I am?
You're the Messiah, the one the prophet said would be sent by God to save your people.
Bless you, Simon. I know that you've discovered this because my Father has revealed it to you. Simon, you've been a rock to me in my ministry, as well as to my followers. That's why I have a new name for you, Peter.
That means the rock. Jesus was probably really happy and a little relieved when his best friend was able to tell everyone just who he was. But Jesus also wanted his friends to keep his secrets. Jesus didn't think that people were ready to find out that he was the Messiah sent by God, and so he told his disciples to keep it between themselves. Now, as I said, Jesus was the Messiah, which means he was the hero sent by God to lead all of humanity back to God and to show everyone the way to heaven. Now, there were many ideas in Israel about who the Messiah was supposed to be. You see, prophets had foretold the Messiah's coming for hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus was born, and people had a lot of time to think about what this guy was supposed to be like. People had ideas that Jesus was going to be a powerful warrior who would start a war with their enemies and create an empire for Israel. Other people thought that he would come to destroy the entire world. And often, people thought that the Messiah was only meant to save the Israelite people. Even Jesus' disciples and his friends didn't really understand what he was supposed to be. I mean, sure, he was the Messiah, but what does that mean? What was he going to do? One day, Jesus decided it was time to show a few of his friends just who he was. Jesus, his best friend Peter, James, and James's brother John went up a mountain together one day. Now, it was already very late in the afternoon, and the disciples were tired from walking all day, so they didn't super appreciate going up a mountain, and they were very tired. They were about to get a massive wake-up call. As Peter, James, and John were standing with Jesus, a bright light suddenly shone around them. At first they were confused because the sun had already gone down, but then they realized that the light was coming from Jesus. Jesus' face was bright, it was shining like the sun, and his clothes had turned a pure white. The disciples fell to their knees. They were stunned at this transformation. But then suddenly, two men also appeared beside Jesus. Moses, who had led the Israelites out of Egypt and given them the 10 Commandments. The other was Elijah, who was one of the greatest prophets in Israel's history. Jesus and the prophets spoke together for a while, but then Peter finally couldn't contain himself and had to say something.
Lord, this is such an amazing thing that we've gotten to see. We should build a monument to mark this as a holy site. I can build 3 houses for you, Moses, and Elijah.
This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him always.
The voice that came from the cloud was so loud that the disciples fell to the ground and covered their heads in fear.
It's all right. Get up and don't be afraid.
Only Jesus was left, just like the disciples remembered him. Moses and Elijah were gone, and the night was quiet and dark.
Listen, guys, don't tell anyone about what you saw up there on the mountain. Not even our friends.
But Jesus, why did we get to see this miraculous vision and they didn't?
Don't worry. Soon they'll see things that are just as miraculous. It's important for them that you keep this a secret until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead.
We call this miracle the Transfiguration, which literally just means that Jesus' face changed. This was the first time that anybody had seen Jesus not just as a man, but as God. From then on, the disciples had no more doubts about Jesus' identity. They knew that even though Jesus just looked and acted like a regular person, he was there to perform something great for God. And soon they would find out just what that great thing was. See, Jesus and his disciples were on their way to Jerusalem. This wasn't the first time that Jesus had made a journey to Jerusalem, but it would be the last. This was only a little while before Jesus was crucified, but we'll talk more about that at Easter time. Now, I know you guys are really smart, and maybe you can help me with a problem. See, for a long time, even after the Transfiguration, people argued about who Jesus was. And I don't just mean like a few years after the Transfiguration or into the early church. I mean for hundreds of years, nobody could decide who Jesus was. Sure, they knew he was the Son of God and the Messiah. He was the incarnation of God, which just means he was God as a person. But how are you supposed to imagine that? I mean, was Jesus a demigod? Was he like part God and part man? Was he half and half? Or was he 60% man and 40% God? Nobody could decide for a long, long time how to define Jesus. Eventually, a group of scholars came to a decision. You can't define Jesus. Jesus is both 100% man and 100% God, which doesn't really make sense. How can you be two things at once? Well, maybe you guys can help me and other people imagine that. I mean, how do you answer the question, who am I? You could give your name, sure, but What does that tell other people about you? On the other hand, if you told somebody, I'm a student, they understand that. You could tell people, I'm a singer, I'm a sports fan, I'm an artist. It's possible to define yourself in many, many ways, not just I am blank. So I want you guys to think of all the different things that you are. For Sunday, when we see each other at 11:30 on Zoom, I want you guys to write down a bunch of things that describe who you are as a person. You can describe your fears, you can describe what you enjoy, you can describe what you want to do with your life. You can use anything to describe yourself. And then we can share those ideas with the class to help each other understand how Jesus was both a man and God at the same time. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I can't wait to see you all on Zoom this Sunday at 11:30. Take care, everyone.